By the way, if you visited your food bank, you know that there is more demand on our food banks than there has ever been. Ladies and gentlemen, reject this bill. Stand up for the values of America and of our people. I yield back the balance of my time.
For what purpose is the gentleman from Michigan rise?
Mr. Chairman, I rise and move to strike the last word.
The gentleman is recognized for 5 minutes.
I thank you. I'd like to follow on to our great whip's very moving statement and ask our good friend Roscoe Bartlett, a distinguished member from Maryland, whether or not he would pass a bill that would cut funding in the amount of $650 million for women and infants and children out of the Department of Agriculture's program. So in the 4 decades that I have served and been honored to serve in this Congress, I believe that we will have reached an all-time low today if we pass a bill that will cut funding for the Department of Agriculture's Women, Infants, and Children program. Ladies and gentlemen, my brothers and sisters, how can anybody in Congress with a conscience seriously consider passing a bill or even proposing one that will result in more hunger for hundreds of thousands of the poorest and neediest low-income children across this nation who are already suffering from hunger and malnutrition? I fail to understand the logic of any elected official who serves in Congress who would actually support a $650 million cut from the Women, Infants, and Children program during one of the worst economic downturns since the Great Depression, without feeling some kind of moral or ethical guilt for doing so. The Women, Infants, and Children program serves nearly 10 million people each year and costs less than $100 per person. What could be more important than supporting a federal program that provides nutritious food to new mothers, babies, and children under 5 who have been identified as nutritionally at risk? Cutting the Women, Infants, and Children's program for poor children and mothers is clearly an abandonment of our family values. Promoting policies that we know will result in scores of children feeling the painful sting of hunger, not being able to focus in school, or not to be able to do their homework is far from what I would consider having good family values. It is simply un-American, immoral, heartless, and unconscionable to take food away from the mouths of hungry children in the name of deficit reductions. Ladies and gentlemen, have we no shame? The majority of Americans do not support slashing vital food and nutrition programs for our nation's poorest children. Let's get rid of the tax breaks for billionaires so all children in this country can live the American dream and not go to bed hungry at night. Mr. Chairman, I yield back the balance of my time.
Gentleman yields back. For what purpose the gentlelady from Illinois? Seek recognition. Gentlelady is recognized for 5 minutes.
I rise today in strong opposition to H.R. 2112, the Agricultural Appropriations Bill. And like so many before me, I'm particularly opposed to cuts in funding to provide food and nutrition to American families, to pregnant women and infants and children and seniors and families struggling in this country to put food on the table at a time of rising unemployment and poverty. I have to tell you, I am at a loss to understand why my Republican colleagues are so insistent in providing even more tax breaks to millionaires and billionaires that they are willing to take food from children. In the Republican worldview, apparently tax cuts to the very wealthy and subsidies to big oil companies and companies that send jobs overseas are a bigger priority than Medicare and Medicaid and education. And again, in this bill, they even take food out of the mouths of hungry children to give those tax breaks. Understand what this bill does. The Commodity Supplemental Food Program, which provides low-income seniors with emergency food and nutrition education, is cut by more than 20%, or $40 billion. In this bill, the Republicans will take food out of the mouths of hungry, poor, old people. The SNAP Reserve Fund will get $2 billion left. SNAP, formerly called food stamps, provides critical nutrition support to low-income families, and the reserve helps meet the demands created by unexpected participation in higher-than-projected food costs. Food costs, everybody knows, are going way up. And with high unemployment and food prices rising, the reserve fund is more likely to be tapped than ever before, and depleting reserve funds will increase the likelihood of a food crisis in the United States of America. Let me tell you what these cuts mean to people in Illinois. Lorraine Dudzinski is 82 years old and started receiving Social Security benefits at age 65. Her monthly benefit is $695 a month. But this amount doesn't even cover her property taxes, her home insurance, her supplemental health insurance, and utilities. That amounts to well over $700. She relies partially on the SNAP, or food stamp program, to feed herself. Her monthly benefit is $16, the minimum SNAP allotment. The Republican cuts likely mean that other seniors like Ms. Dudzinski will be turned away from SNAP if they find themselves in that circumstance next year. Our seniors deserve better. I will.
I want to remind you, SNAP actually goes up $5.6 billion on this, and you're not talking about it, but the school lunch also goes up $1.5 million. So I did want to say that the SNAP portion of this bill does go up $5.6 billion. And I thank the gentlewoman for yielding.
And it's still below, what is that? The President? It's still $2 billion lower than the President's request. And at this time, we want to make sure the money is there at a time of high unemployment, of disappearing 401ks and savings. And the Emergency Food Assistance Program is cut by more than 20%, or $60 million. And TFAP provides commodities to food banks to assist in relief efforts. And with unemployment still high, and I know this in my district, many people who used to contribute to food banks are now waiting in line to get the food, to keep food on their tables. And with diminished federal support, they may show up only to find empty shelves. And then we get to the WIC program. I'm a mother and a grandmother, and for the first time in American history, we will turn away eligible mothers and children from the program, an effective program. With it, infants and children can get a healthy start in life, and without it, they can suffer from lifelong health problems. For every dollar spent, WIC provides health care savings of as much as $3. $3 for every $1 spent. So we talk a lot about children, we talk a lot about seniors in this House, but let's be clear, the choice before us is not whether we have to deny children food in order to reduce the deficit. The choice is whether we will make millionaires and billionaires pay their fair share so that low-income mothers, infants, and children will be fed. The choice is clear. Vote no on this legislation.
Time expired. For what purpose is the gentlelady from New York rise?
Mr. Chair, I move to strike the last word.
Gentlelady is recognized for 5 minutes.
I rise today in opposition of the underlying bill, H.R. 2112, the Agricultural, Rural Development, Food and Drug Administration and Related Agencies Appropriations Act of 2012, and the cuts to the WIC program. We want to talk about right to life. WIC is a right to life. It's an essential program that offers nutrition, education, breastfeeding support, referrals, and a variety of nutritious foods to low-income pregnant, breastfeeding, and postpartum women, infants, and children up to the age of 5. The program is administered through county health departments, hospitals, mobile clinics, community centers, schools, public housing sites, migrant health centers, and camps, and Indian Health Service facilities. In New York State, the WIC program provides services to nearly 500,000 low-income women, infants, and children through 103 local WIC agencies statewide. Local agencies such as Brooklyn's Healthy Start have provided WIC services to low-income women in my district for many more than 20 years. It is because of the work of the Brooklyn Healthy Start and other WIC programs who are on the front lines that are fighting against this country's already shamefully high infant mortality rate. Decreasing funding to WIC programs will undoubtedly increase my district's infant mortality rate and infant mortality rates across this nation. Given the spike in demand for WIC and other nutrition programs like SNAP and food stamps, school meals, summer, after-school, and child care food programs, it is unconscionable that the Republican-led Congress is seeking to cut these critical programs that help seniors, children, and low-income people who aspire to be part of our nation's middle class. First, Republicans went after our nation's seniors who rely on Medicare, and now they're going after the children and mothers who rely on our social compact for food assistance. If we got rid of tax breaks for multimillionaires and billionaires for just 1 week, we would pay for the entire WIC program for a year. It is my belief that cuts to the WIC program are based on an ideological political rationale that defies human understanding and not an honest desire to cut deficits. This agricultural appropriation bill continues to protect tax cuts for multimillionaires while having poor women and children stuck to pay the dear price. WIC has been shown to improve the health of pregnant women, new mothers, and infants and children. The foods provided through WIC are a good source of essential nutrients that are often missing from the diets of women and young children. WIC participants have longer, healthier pregnancies and fewer premature births. We all understand the need to reduce the deficit, but we must do so in a way that is consistent with our shared values. It is a moral imperative that we look after those who are forgotten, marginalized in our society. In the words of a prolific, poetic philosopher, Kanye West, how could you be so heartless? Republicans shouldn't destroy programs upon which citizens depend on the most in exchange to pay for $45 billion in tax breaks for multimillionaires. Shame. I urge my colleagues to vote against this bill and protect low-income women, infants, and children. And I yield back the balance of my time.
For what purpose is the gentleman from Minnesota rise? The gentleman is recognized for 5 minutes.
Mr. Chairman, we're told that we're broke. We're broke And because we're broke, we can't possibly pay for things like women, infant, and children. We can't have a jobs bill. We can't build our nation's infrastructure. We can't. We have to cut because according to some, we're broke. But when we think about how the bounty of this nation is spread, we're not so broke that we can't give subsidies to oil companies. We're not so broke that we can't ask the richest Americans to do a little more. We're not so broke that we don't call upon people who America has benefited and allowed them to become millionaires and say, you know what, now your nation needs you. We're told, no, those people don't have to sacrifice, but we're broke. So women and infants and children and seniors, they have to sacrifice. They have to go without. They have to tighten their belts. It's a shame. We're not asked to be one America, to bear the burden together. If there's a burden to be borne, surely oil companies can bear it with the American people. If there's a burden to be borne, surely the wealthiest among us can pitch in and help out. But not according to the Republican majority. According to them, we're broke, and the poor must suffer. The aged must do without. Those in need have to figure out how to make it one more day. Because we're broke, and we have to take food out of the mouths of infants and pregnant mothers. And because we're broke, we need to increase the risk of foodborne illness. And because we're broke, we cannot afford to pay cops on the beat who are going to regulate the speculators on Wall Street who drive up the price of gasoline and food. We can't pay for these important public servants because they say we're broke. But we're not too broke to ask our oil companies to help. We're not too broke to ask the top 2% to pitch in. The day must come, Mr. Chair, when the poor are not thought to have too much and the rich are not thought to have too little. The day must come when we have to be one America and come together to deal with the burdens of this nation and not leave the wealthiest and the most privileged scot-free while the other people have to bear the burden of we're broke. I yield back.
Who seeks recognition? For what purpose? The gentleman from Ohio rise.
Move to strike the last word.
The gentleman from Ohio is recognized for 5 minutes.
Mr. Speaker, my colleagues, what we really have here is a discussion not so much as to which party has moral superiority here, but it's really a deeper question about what's the purpose of our nation and whether we are aligned with the Founding Fathers' spiritual principles. Because while the founders separated church and state, they did not intend our nation to be separated from spiritual principles. And I think that at this moment, if we really want to sincerely appreciate the dilemma that we have created with these cuts, we need to reflect on some of our own spiritual training for those of us who are Christian, when in John 21:15, Jesus was dining with his apostles, and so when they dined, Jesus said to Simon Peter, Simon, son of Jonas, lovest thou me more than these? He said unto him, Yea, Lord, thou knowest that I love thee. And the Lord said to him, Feed my lambs. He said to him again the second time, Simon, son of Jonas, knowest thou me? He said unto him, Yea, Lord, thou knowest that I love thee. And the Lord answered, Feed my sheep. He said unto him the third time, Simon, son of Jonas, lovest thou me? Peter was grieved because he said unto him the third time, Lovest thou me? And he said unto him, Lord, thou knowest all things. Thou knowest that I love thee. Jesus said unto him, Feed my sheep. There are spiritual principles at stake here. We know what the right thing is to do. We know that feeding the hungry is a corporal work of mercy. We know that we have a responsibility to do this. We know that when the Bible says, whatever you do for the least of my brothers and sisters, you do for me, in Matthew 25, that we actually are referring to how spiritual is the act of feeding the poor. This decision that we make with respect to whether or not we are going to fully fund Women's and Infant Children program does have profound spiritual consequences. We cannot escape them. For when I was hungry, you gave me food. Remember that. When I was hungry, you gave me food. You didn't give me war. You didn't give me a tax break. You didn't give me an oil depletion allowance. When I was hungry, you gave me food. Who among you, the Bible asks, if his son asked for bread, would give them a stone? The spiritual principles we're talking about here. This really goes to the core of who we are as a nation. Whether we recognize the people who are out there are suffering. People may not have a roof over their head. Mothers who may be living in a car, having to tend to their children. America today is not the country it was at its founding. But it can be a nation that aspires to great things again. But it cannot do it if we forget the poor, if we forget the children, if we forget their mothers, if we tell them that, no, you cannot have the resources you need to be able to provide proper nutrition to your child so that he or she can grow up in this United States of America to be a full participant in the affairs of this nation. This is a defining moment for who we are as a nation. This isn't about whether we're Democrats or Republicans. This is about whether we are prepared to realign ourselves with the deeper truths of the spiritual mission of the United States of America. Feed the hungry. Feed my sheep. When I was hungry, you gave me food. Restore these cuts. I yield back.
For what purpose does the gentleman rise? Gentleman from Indiana, rise.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. I yield the balance of my time to the honorable colleague from Georgia. Thank you.
The gentleman is recognized for 5 minutes, and he is yielded to the gentleman from Georgia.
I thank the gentleman from Indiana for the time, and I want to make a couple points, very important. Number one, this bill increases food stamps $5.6 billion. Now, somebody has said, but that's not as much as the President requested. Well, it is an increase of $5.6 billion, and I'm sorry, the President's crystal ball isn't always the best one. Don't need to remind you about last summer's celebration of recovery or whatever it was called. School nutrition goes up $1.5 billion under this bill. We did what has been done in the past with WIC. We fund the participation level that is anticipated. Last year, the Democrats voted to cut WIC funding by $562 million. Got the votes right here. If any Democrat's not sure how he or she voted, I want to give you the vote. I'll put it in the record so everybody can have a chance to look at it, because after a while I have to wonder. Also have the vote record for extending the Bush tax cuts, which was signed by Mr. Obama. Got the vote record for that. Want to say to some of my friends over there, I voted no on that. Very important. This bill funds WIC at 8.3 million participants. Now, if it goes up to over 9 million, the contingency fund is there to cover that. The contingency fund for WIC alone is $350 million. It would have been higher, Mr. Chairman, but the Democrats voted to cut it $562 million last year for an unrelated account. Now, to quote one of the well-known Democrats, that's an inconvenient truth to some of the speakers here tonight. But it is very important. Now, it is not the intention of this bill to let anybody go hungry. And I am glad any time the Bible is quoted on the floor of the House, I think it's a good thing. But I think there's some lessons in there that if there's a target on children's back, perhaps it's the fact that our nation is over $14 trillion in debt, and for every dollar we spend, 40 cents is borrowed, much of that from China. And who do you think is going to pay that back? It's not going to be the generations who are making the decision. It's going to be the children. So what our challenge is, Mr. Chairman, is to balance the physical need with the heart. And I believe that this budget very carefully does that. It increases food stamps, $5.6 billion. It increases school lunch, $1.5 billion. It funds WIC at a level of $8.3 million and has a contingency that will cover over 9 million participants. So for all the drama that we're hearing, and it's some very good rhetoric and some very good drama, but it is not accurate. Now, we could be talking about the WIC overhead, the WIC administrative costs. We could be talking about the fraud in WIC. We could be talking about the coordination of feeding benefits. You know, if a child is 3 years old in America, he or she is eligible for 12 different programs. At 10 years old, they're eligible for 9 programs. At 65, they're eligible for 5 different feeding programs. Those are federal programs, does not mention any of the state or the local participation in programs that are out there, doesn't mention any of the charitable organizations that are out there. So again, we're hearing lots of great rhetoric, lots of drama, but it's not accurate. These numbers are important for reasonable debate for people who are trying to balance the runaway spending in this country, 56% increase in the national debt under President Obama, and the need to take care of the poor. And I want to say to my friend Mr. Kucinich, because I know he has been very consistent, and I do certainly agree that everybody here has passion and conviction and idealism, which I think we all need more of. I voted with you, Mr. Kucinich, last week. I think we're spending a lot of money in Libya, and those are things that are very important for us to be debating on the floor of the House before the President of the United States of either party goes and obligates billions of dollars in a new overseas contingency operation. We need to be discussing that. And so I'd say put that on the table. And with that, I want to thank the gentleman from Indiana and yield back the balance of my time.
Thank you.
I yield back.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Washington rise? Strike the last word. Thank you. Gentleman is recognized for 5 minutes.
Mr. Speaker, I rise in opposition to this bill, in part because the truth of the matter is that the $562 million that was cut in WIC funds last year did not affect participants. The reason it didn't affect participants was that the WIC foods cost less and there were fewer participants in fiscal year 2010, so the funds were not needed. Now today it's Flag Day, and we're celebrating Flag Day, and I want to celebrate that great liberal of the United States of America, Richard M. Nixon. Richard M. Nixon put this program in. Now we all know he was a bleeding heart liberal, right? He just couldn't wait to give money to poor folks, and he also, by the way, put out here a universal health care plan. So, you know, there's some question you might ask yourself about why we have WIC. Well, the social safety net is like a spider web, and there's a whole lot of places that you have to help people. We have Social Security, and we have unemployment insurance, and we got foster kid money, and we got things for women and children. Now, the Republicans in this session have deliberately set out to go after women and children. The first place was Planned Parenthood. We don't want to give any young women any information about anything having to do with getting pregnant. Now, more kids get pregnant. They're 16 years old, they have a kid, and they don't have any counseling, and nobody talks to them about nutrition and gives them the things that they need. What is the result of that? The result of that is more low birth weight babies, more babies born with poor development because they didn't have the nutrition during the cycle of development. And let's say we have, you know how much they spend, the average amount spent on a woman in the WIC program? It's $100. $100 to deal with the problems of infants and children on average. Now, I happen to know, being a physician, that if you get a premature baby who comes in at 2.5 pounds and everybody's so excited that we can save these kids, but let me tell you, it costs money. If you can deal with a premature baby at the hospital for under $250,000, you have a real miracle. And you could have prevented it for $100. You could have saved. If you're really about deficit reduction, I know you don't care about human beings particularly, but you do care about saving money.
Well, my friend,
if we could, no, you're going to break my train of thought here.
If my friend will yield, I just want to underscore
Mr.
something.
Speaker, I have the time.
You certainly do.
If you're going to save money, then you're going to put it into the children at the beginning. Now, there's other reasons for that. If they don't get good nutrition at the beginning, and they don't get good brain development, and they don't do well in school, they drop out, right? And then we don't have a workforce in this country to do what needs to be done in this country. So we get immigrants to come in and do things. People don't want immigrants, then feed the children that you insisted that women have in this country. You don't want anybody to have any planning on birth, and then the kid comes and you won't feed him. You won't take care of him, and you're going to pay the price. I remember there used to be a television commercial when I was a kid. It was called the Fram commercial. It was an air filter on your automobile, and the commercial was, pay me now or pay me later. Change the filter or you're going to pay having the engine redone. That's why we have all these kids dropping out of school, because we don't take, that's why it's fascinating. The children's feeding program in schools was from Harry Truman. Why did he do that? Well, they looked at the records of the Second World War, and they rejected so many draftees because they didn't have good bones, they were malnourished, they were maldeveloped, and they weren't fit to be soldiers. They put that school lunch program in so that they could make strong kids so we could have a strong army. This business about saving $100 on a woman who has a child and doesn't know. She's 16 years old, she's 17 years old, she's 18 years old. She doesn't. This is the most short-sighted bill I've ever seen. Vote no.
For what purpose the gentleman from Virginia rise?
Mr. Speaker, I move to strike the last word.
The gentleman's recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To I rise in opposition to the underlying bill and in strong support of the Women, Infants, and Children program that provides food to new mothers, babies, and children under 5 who have been identified as nutritionally at risk. WIC ensures that infants and children grow in a healthy manner. The program reduces levels of anemia, increases immunization rates, improves access to regular health care and social services, and it improves diets. Nearly 50% of babies born in this country each year benefit from the WIC program, and the success of the program is clear. Numerous studies have shown that pregnant women who participate in WIC have fewer premature births, fewer low and very low birth weight babies, experience fewer fetal and infant deaths, seek prenatal care earlier in their pregnancy, and consume more key nutrients during their pregnancy. Simply put, WIC infants are in better health than eligible infants not participating in WIC. But the benefits of WIC participation extend beyond the short term. A baby's physical, cognitive, and emotional growth and development depend largely on how much and what types of foods are eaten during pregnancy and the first years after birth, especially the first year after birth. This period is critical because more than half of a child's brain growth is completed by the child's first birthday, and malnutrition during this period can cause irreversible diminution in brain development. And so 4- and 5-year-olds whose mothers participated in WIC during pregnancy have better vocabulary scores than children whose mothers did not receive WIC benefits. And this leads to better academic achievement, lower dropout rates, and other factors that we're trying to work on. Furthermore, Mr. Chairman, if we want our nation's children to be the strongest and smartest they can be, we need to make sure that our children are receiving the nutritional support they need during these formative years. Finally, WIC is cost-effective. Serving nearly 10 million people each year, it costs less than $100 a person, and that cost is so low that if we suspended the Bush tax cuts for millionaires and billionaires for only 1 week, we could pay for the entire WIC program for a full year. And we save a substantial amount of that little cost by reducing health care costs. Medical costs for a premature baby are much greater than those for a healthy newborn. For a baby born without complications, the average cost for first-year medical costs is about $4,500 compared to a premature or low birth weight baby, which will cost about $50,000 in short-term medical costs and significantly more in long-term costs resulting from higher incidence of mental retardation and learning disabilities. And so, Mr. Chairman, for those interested only in the budget impact of WIC, the Department of Agriculture estimates that the health care cost savings within 60 days of a child's birth are between $1.77 and $3.13 for every dollar invested in the WIC program. Let me say that again. The Department of Agriculture estimates that the health care cost savings within 60 days of a child's birth are between $1.77 and $3.13 for every dollar invested in the program. So, Mr. Chairman, the benefits of the WIC program are not speculative, they are clear. And I commend my colleagues that are here fighting to maintain funding for this important program, and I urge others to do the same. Mr. Chairman, I yield back the balance of my time.
The gentleman yields back for what purpose the gentleman from New York moves to strike the last word. He is recognized for 5 minutes.
Mr. Chair, I rise in opposition to the underlying bill. It seems the Republicans aren't stopping at Medicare alone. Now they're cutting crucial assistance to women and to young children. In addressing our nation's fiscal future, we simply cannot afford to lose our values. When the going gets tough, are we a nation that abandons our most vulnerable while giving tax breaks to millionaires and billionaires? Or are we a nation that holds close the most basic obligations we have to our fellow citizens: food for young children, Medicare and Social Security for our seniors, and an education for our students? We have many tough choices to make during these difficult economic times. Cutting a program that provides food assistance for families that would otherwise go without should absolutely not be one of them. The WIC program is one of our nation's most cost-effective and successful programs. Nearly 50% of babies born in the United States rely on WIC. 10 million Americans benefit from this most basic food assistance at a cost of less than $100 per person. The drastic Republican cuts included in this legislation will leave as many as 350,000 women, infants, and children without access to necessary food assistance. The capital region of upstate New York, my own community, ranks among the 100 most in need of food assistance. My constituents see the plans to cut Medicare and the plans to cut food assistance programs, and they are wondering why their health is being put on the line while some of our nation's wealthiest individuals and corporations are let off the hook with $45 billion worth in tax breaks. The Republican budget simply doesn't add up, Mr. Chair. Every $1 we invest in WIC saves up to $3.13 in health costs per child, just in the first 60 days after an infant's birth alone. Cutting this program doesn't cut spending, and it doesn't even help reduce our long-term deficit. This program brings down long-term health care costs, and most importantly, it saves lives. In just 1 week, millionaire tax breaks cost our country $866 million and reach only 321,000 individuals. The WIC program, on the other hand, costs $33 million, less for an entire year of serving 9.2 million women, infants, and children in need. It is clear from these numbers, Mr. Chair, where Republican priorities lie. We're all concerned about the federal deficit, but the majority continues to insist upon cutting programs that work and work well for America's middle class and her families. WIC saves the taxpayers money in future health care costs and ensures some of our most vulnerable citizens that they will have the most basic food and nutrition assistance. Recent polls show that 64% of Americans are concerned that this budget plan will take away needed protections for the poor and underserved. We have good reason to be concerned given the plan to end Medicare and this most recent attack on the WIC program. In these tough times, we must stand together in solidarity. This is not the time to abandon our friends and neighbors in need of a helping hand to make ends meet. From Medicare to WIC to education and housing assistance, we simply cannot turn our backs on our fellow Americans while we reward the wealthiest amongst us. That is not the compassionate thing to do. It is not the American thing to do, nor is it the answer to solving our debt problem. We can and we must do better. Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I yield back the balance of my time.
Gentleman yields back. For what purpose the gentleman from Georgia rise?
Move to strike the last word.
Gentleman is recognized for 5 minutes.
Mr. Chairman, how many times will Republicans attempt to rob innocent Americans of their health and their wellness? First, they morally bankrupted themselves when they took a hatchet, or I should say a scythe. That's that thing that the Grim Reaper walks with. They took a scythe to Medicare in the Ryan budget, attempting to increase the health care cost of seniors, and passed it unanimously. Unanimous Republican support for the Ryan Grim Reaper budget plan that cut Medicare, really destroyed Medicare as we know it. Replaced it with a voucher system. That's what they have passed in this House. And now the Grim Reaper is coming again. Not to cut tax cuts to the rich, not to cut tax subsidies to big oil companies. The Grim Reaper is not here to cut from wealthy individuals all of the tax breaks that they have been getting. No, the Grim Reaper is here to cut something that is fundamental to life, and that is money for food for human beings. The Grim Reaper moving slowly, not bouncing at all, just creeping through the night with his scythe, ready to cut the WIC program. I'm opposed to any effort to remove funding for nutrition assistance for women and children, leaving them to go hungry in the streets. During these difficult times, soup kitchens, pantry shelters, churches, nonprofits, including many in my district, they have reached their limits in terms of the assistance that they can give to those who need it. Mr. Chairman, the budget brought to the floor today will lead to a drastic multi-million-dollar shortfall for the WIC program, not only resulting in more individuals going hungry, but placing additional strain on many aid agencies who have already reached the end of their rope. This week I've spoken to pastors, rabbis, and faith-based leaders of all stripes and haven't heard a single one of them express support for reducing nutrition assistance. In fact, many of them today, right now, are roaming the halls of Congress, speaking to anyone who cares to listen, to express their opposition to this bill. They are desperate to talk about the effects of these drastic cuts. I came down to the well of the House earlier today to speak about Republican efforts to take food out of the mouths of mothers and children across the country. Today, with the help of this bill, this Congress will accomplish something that has not been done in 14 years. Today, looks like this Congress, as the Grim Reaper, will pass a bill that doesn't provide enough money to serve all WIC participants. Instead, we will pass a bill that forces vulnerable families to depend completely on the same food banks that have run out of food, while we continue to subsidize tax breaks for millionaires, billionaires, and big oil. Grim Reaper is not calling for them, not coming for them, doesn't want to bother them. I can't in good conscience support this effort of the Grim Reapers to rob low-income Americans of basic necessities like food while giving millions to those who no longer need our assistance. In a nation as great as the United States, we should not be promoting corporate welfare while taking food out of the mouths of hungry children. And I yield back.
For what purpose the gentleman from New Jersey rise?
Mr. Chairman, I move to strike the last word.
The gentleman is recognized for 5 minutes.
Mr. Chairman, I believe we are broke, but we're morally broke. That's how we're broke. Let's be straight here. What's our vision for America? That's got to be the barometer. What do we want this country to be in the future? Now, we can say we certainly don't want it to be fiscally broke, but no one comes to this well with clean hands. This is something we should be sitting down and talking about together. How can we solve America's problems? So what's our vision? It may be a balanced budget, our vision. I could support that. It may be cutting waste and fraud. Well, that sounds good. We should all be supporting that. It may be to get Americans back to work. Over 14 million are still unemployed, and the underemployed. It may be to halt the loss of our homes, like we did on the western frontier 150 years ago, when people worked together to end those foreclosures. My vision does not include hurting our most vulnerable children and seniors just to make a point. You heard the gentleman from Maryland talk earlier how little this means in bringing down the deficit for 1 year or 10 years. We've got our priorities screwed up. So yes, we want a balanced budget. Isn't it interesting that the last president who balanced the budget was a Democratic president? Yes, we want business investment. And isn't it interesting that in the past 4 decades, the only president that reached over 10% increase in business investment was a Democratic president? Bill Clinton. 3 times almost more than Ronald Reagan. Check your facts. We need a fact check here. A fact check. The last 4 years, the number of children affected has grown from 12.4 million to 17 million. Have we no responsibility for that? In my district, 109,000 constituents suffer from food insecurity only half of whom are eligible for federal food aid programs. What do the other half do? Yet here we are discussing cuts. And I understand neither party is privy to virtue on these issues. But you cannot tell me we can't rise above. If we have a vision of America that encompasses everyone, not just some and not just the few, the long-term effects of a child struggling with hunger does not add up to any real savings. Child is hungry, cannot learn. Child who can't learn will not succeed in school. A child without an education will have difficulty finding a job. We know the records of those who are unemployed, and the records of how many years they are in school are greatly and essentially connected to how many years they have in school, and that tells you how many people are unemployed. The children affected by these that you're talking about in the agricultural bill are our future. They go hungry today, they will not be ready for tomorrow. I simply disagree with the other side's, in all due respect, logic behind these cuts. It's short-sighted, and we cannot simply cut the safety net while people are still in that net. Seniors, children, working poor. It doesn't make sense. What have we become as a nation? We're not asking for handouts or giveaways. We're talking about people who are working, and many of them poor. There are many of those. And it took a Republican president to recognize it. The Earned Income Tax Credit was something that your side created. And who would yet take away the incentive for people to keep working? The proposed cuts that you have proposed in the Food and Drug Administration in this bill, $572 million below the President's request. This means fewer inspectors, fewer inspections, plain and simple. Oh, I forgot. That's the idea in this age of anti-regulation. So what we do want to do is go back to 2008. Let's go back to where we were. I say no. We're better than that. We're better than 2008. And if we work together, we can get over that hump. Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
Time of the gentleman has expired. For what purpose does the minority leader rise?
Strike the last word.
The gentleman from California seek recognition?
Yeah, Mr. Speaker, I
For what
rise.
purpose does the minority leader rise?
I ask unanimous consent to strike the last word.
Gentlelady is recognized.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, it's 6 o'clock. Across America, or at least in the Eastern Time Zone, families across America are getting ready to sit down for dinner. At their kitchen table, in many homes in our country, moms are saying to their children, eat your vegetables, eat your dinner. But in some homes in America, there isn't adequate food on the table. There isn't adequate nutrition for our children. It's hard to imagine that 1 in 5 kids in America may go to sleep hungry tonight with pains in their stomachs because they just didn't have enough food to eat. In its wisdom, the United States of America established the WIC program a while back for women, infants, and children to make sure our nation was strong, was to make sure that we fed our children. Our country made a decision that feeding our children was a priority. Sounds so obvious. Families make decisions about their budgets, that they're going to feed their children. They wouldn't think of saving money by not feeding their children. But for some in low-income areas and for others now, this is into the middle class, it's very hard to make ends meet. And so you wonder, these people who are sitting down to dinner, how the Congress of the United States should decide that in trying to reduce the deficit, which we're all committed to do, that's important to our children as well, why we would decide to balance that budget on the little tiny backs of our children, many of whom don't have enough to eat. I want to commend Congresswoman DeLauro for her leadership as a member of the Ag Subcommittee of Appropriations, a former chair of that subcommittee. She successfully passed an amendment in committee which had bipartisan support. It would have to have bipartisan support to pass, to restore $147 million to the WIC program to feed the children. I congratulate her for that. It is part of the bill that was supposed to come to the floor. The Republican leadership has decided not to protect that bipartisanly passed amendment. What we're seeing is a cutting support for children, women, infant, and children is in the context of something bigger. At the same time as we are making these cuts, we are giving tax subsidies to big oil. The price at the pump is also an imposition on the budgets of these families. And that is something that we can do something about by ending speculation, harmful speculation, and but to do that we have to fund the Commodities Futures Trading Commission, which is in this bill as well. And the Republicans are saying they want to delay, 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 and defeat the enforcement of laws which would end speculation, which would reduce the price at the pump, Goldman Sachs says, by at least 20%. At the same time, the same Republican majority has passed a bill not once but twice to abolish Medicare. Food, price at the pump, Medicare, these are assaults on the middle class that are hard to withstand. In fact, they're hard to understand. It's hard to understand why we'd say to seniors, you're going to pay more for Medicare for fewer benefits as we abolish Medicare while we give subsidies to big oil. We're going to say to seniors in nursing homes, you're going to go home and live with your family who can probably ill afford for you to do so we can give tax breaks to corporations to send jobs overseas. We're going to say to children whom we're not feeding that we're cutting education funding as well as making college more expensive for nearly 10 million students in our country, for some making it unaffordable to go to college, while we give tax breaks to the wealthiest people in our country. So they're cutting support for women, infants, and children while handing a blank check to speculators. They're ending Medicare while they give subsidies to big oil. These do not reflect America's values and priorities, these choices. These are tough choices. They will not bring the growth we need to expand our economy, put people back to work as we create jobs. They will not make America strong. As moms across America are saying to children right now, 6 o'clock in the East, eat your vegetables, they will make you strong. We are acting on this floor to do just the opposite, to cut the funding for the initiative that will help feed the children of America. It's unthinkable that a family would say we can't afford to feed the children. It's unthinkable that a nation committed to the future would say we can't afford to feed the children. These families need our help. It's a large amount of money, $147 million, very small compared to the subsidies to big oil, and a small price to pay for the health and well-being of our children and the strength of our country as we go into the future. So I commend Congresswoman DeLauro for her tremendous leadership, for fighting for this, for not taking no for an answer in the committee, and I would hope that we could prevail on the floor, but the Republican majority has left little option for that to happen. I also want to commend the ranking member, Congressman Farr, now the ranking member on the Ag Subcommittee. Probably nobody in the Congress knows more. There may be some who are as equal, I don't know, but probably no one knows more about this issue representing an agricultural issue region as he does, and also being committed to the health and well-being, the good nutrition of our children so that they can be strong, so that they can learn in school so that they can be part of our great country in the best possible way for them. So I thank you, Ranking Member Farr, for your leadership as well. And with that, I yield back the balance of my time.
Gentlelady yields back. For what purpose, the gentleman from Arkansas rise?
Move to strike the last word.
Gentleman is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Appreciate the opportunity, and I appreciate the leadership of our subcommittee chair, who I will recognize and yield some time to here in just a moment. Obviously, we are spending more than we make, and I don't know how many times we have to articulate the condition, the financial condition of our country, that we're borrowing over 40 cents on the dollar for everything we spend. The country is in a financial crisis. And you've got members on this side of the aisle that are doing everything they can to bring fiscal sanity back to the table, to put America on a different path. And I'm amused at how many times we continue to be portrayed as being insensitive to women, infants, and children, to older folks, and how so many half-truths are being spoken about the things that this conference is trying to do in order to right America's financial ship. Suffice it to say that we have much work to do, and it is our intent to do it in a way that is rational and feasible, and brings this country back to fiscal order, and can take away that cloud of uncertainty that continues to hover over the job creators in this country, the threat of higher taxes that is tied to our tremendous deficit in debt, the over-regulation that is keeping those entrepreneurs parked on the sideline for fear of higher cost of job expansion, higher energy prices, on and on and on. The challenges facing this country are many, and we have much work to do. At this time, I'd like to yield so much time as you may consume to the distinguished chairman of the subcommittee, the gentleman from Georgia, Mr. Kingston.
I thank Mr. Womack for yielding.